It's March 25th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with Hyundai Motor Group's $21 billion investment in the U.S. Hyundai's executive chair Chung Hee-sun announced an additional $21 billion in new investment over the next 4 years in a bid to avoid Trump's tariffs. U.S. President Donald Trump touted that Hyundai's investment plan shows that his tariffs work. As soon as he returned to office after the top court's dismissal of his impeachment on Monday, Prime Minister and Acting President Duck-soo convened his first emergency national security meeting, where he couldn't stress enough the urgency and importance of security and economic policies. Wildfires that broke out in Useong-gun County over the weekend have now spread down to Andong City of Gyeongsangbuk-do Province. Authorities say the wildfires are the third worst ever seen in the country. South Korean automaker Hyundai Motor Group says it'll invest a whopping $21 billion into the U.S. through 2028 as a part of its strategies and efforts to avoid being hit by Trump's tariffs. Our Lee Sing-jae has our top story.
Hyundai Motor Group Executive Chairman Chung Hee-sun met with U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House on Monday. There, Chung announced that South Korea's largest automaker will be investing $21 billion in the United States through 2028.
So Hyundai Motor entered the U.S. 1986. Since then, we have invested over $20 billion and now support more than 570,000 American jobs across all 50 states. Today, I'm pleased to announce an additional $21 billion in a new investment over the next 4 years, our largest U.S. invest ever.
The investment includes $8.6 billion for the automotive sector, $6.1 billion for the steel industry, components, parts, and logistics, and $6.3 billion for future industry sectors and energy. Chung also announced that the company will open a new $8 billion automotive plant in Georgia later this week that will allow its U.S. car production to exceed 1 million units per year. According to the U.S. president, the $21 billion investment will give Hyundai Motor Group a pass from his tariff policies.
Hyundai will be producing steel in America and making its cars in America, and as a result, they'll not have to pay any tariffs. You know, there are no tariffs if you make your product in America.
Trump also said on Monday that his administration will announce tariffs on automobiles over the next few days. His remarks have raised speculation that new tariffs on cars could come before he announces his reciprocal tariffs on April 2nd. Trump also emphasized that Hyundai's massive investment is clear evidence that his tariff policy is effective. Lee Sing-jae, Arirang News.
Acting President and Prime Minister Duck-soo says South Korea's security situation is more serious than ever, noting recent provocations by North Korea, including missile and nuclear threats and cyber attacks. This came on Monday evening as he held his first emergency national security meeting since returning from 88 days of suspension, and after visiting an area hit by wildfires in the nation's southeast. He also said that in current global conditions, security and economic policies can no longer be separated. He added that due to this, all government ministries must work together as a one team and cooperate closely to ensure that companies competing in the global market can secure stable supply chains and fully demonstrate their capabilities. So after the top court overturned his impeachment, acting President Han immediately got back to work with a pledge to steer the country out of challenges amid a growing social division and a global trade war. Our political correspondent Kim Do-yeon has this report.
In an address to the nation after 88 days in suspension, acting President and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo on Monday emphasized national unity. He especially called for politicians to work together amid multiple crises.
If there's one clear lesson we've learned over the past few years, it's that a society divided by extremes leads only to misery and fulfills the dreams of no one. The ruling and opposition parties, as well as the government, must truly change, and I will start with myself.
He also noted that during the 50 years he's spent in public service, the majority of the people in South Korea have wanted to make the country go up and forward, not left or right. As for his return as a caretaker, he said during his suspension he thought deeply about what his last responsibilities would be if he were to return. He pointed out the global trade war started by US President Donald Trump and said the world is currently facing an intensifying US-China power rivalry following the inauguration of President Trump, along with a new wave of geopolitical shifts and the restructuring of the global economic order.
I will devote all my wisdom and capabilities to safeguarding our national interests in the trade war that has already become a reality. For the remainder of my term, every decision I make will be guided by what best serves Korea's industries and future generations. The entire cabinet will move forward alongside me.
Han was immediately briefed about the ongoing devastating wildfires in the southeast of the country. He also made orders to public safety officials amid the turbulent times. For his first lunch back, he ate with cabinet members. There, he urged ministers to push forward on key issues directly tied to people's livelihoods with greater speed. And he asked all cabinet members and public officials across the country to do their utmost to ensure that every aspect of state affairs, including diplomacy, national security, the economy, trade, public safety, and administration, functions smoothly. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea's top court has brought the country's prime minister back into office. But President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment ruling is still up in the air, with speculation that the ruling may not be made until April. We are joined by Professor Song Se-ryun this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Professor Song, I'd like to recap Prime Minister Han Duck-soo's impeachment ruling with you first. Do you think the court's dismissal has provided any clue for President Yoon's impeachment ruling, or is it still hard to tell? What do you think?
Well, it's hard to tell. The court did a good job keeping it under wraps. The court ruling confined itself just enough to decide on the Prime Minister Han's case. What we were looking for was their ruling or language that has to do with the involvement in the martial law announcement in December 3rd. But they decided that the Prime Minister Han was not involved enough without ruling on the substance or the validity of the martial law case. I mean, other accounts about the special prosecutors, post-martial law governance, and constitutional court justices appointment, those are important and interesting points, but did not really indicate any direction for the insurrection charges. However, I think that there are some indications. Obviously, it was not an 8-0 decision.
Right.
And there was a Justice Jung Kye-sun who thought the actions he's taken is grave enough to uphold the impeachment for the prime minister. On the other hand, there was another Justice Kim Bo-kyung who thought that the prime minister did nothing wrong constitutionally. So there are some spectrums here that might be reflected in the President Yoon's case. But even so, these are speculations.
Well, as soon as he returned to office, Han is under this pressure to appoint the opposition recommended Constitutional Court Justice candidate Ma Eun-young as the 9th justice. Is there any possibility that Han will appoint Ma anytime soon?
Well, I think not likely. He asked for the bipartisan agreement on the constitutional figure, Justice Ma. He got impeached for it at the National Assembly, but we know now that the Constitutional Court is not willing to uphold the impeachment for that ground. So Han might not change his position on this matter and still ask for the bipartisan agreement. But even if he acts, I think the President Yoon's impeachment trial is too advanced at this point. So the question itself of the involvement of Justice Ma might be moot already.
Well, Professor Song, I do have to mention that everything we've been experiencing since last December is unprecedented. So I have to ask you, what happens if Han does appoint Ma eventually? What happens to the ruling for Yoon?
Well, you're right. I mean, it's unprecedented, so it could change. President Ma joining will mean, on the positive side, it's a full bench and the legitimacy is restored, and pressure from the opposition party and the Constitutional Court itself would disappear. However, as I said before, for the purpose of President Yoon's impeachment trial, they finished their hearing phase of it in February 25th. So it was a month away, and they've been having deliberations nonstop until now. So even if he gets appointed, I think the prudent action is to recuse himself or be set aside so that all the justices who have been involved from the start finish the job. If not, I think there would be very big disruptions. So I think that the court is willing to take steps to avoid those kind of disruptions.
Well, here's another variable. 2 of the 8 justice terms end on April 18th, as we all know. If we pass that deadline, what happens to the ruling for President Yoon's impeachment? Or do you think everything will be wrapped up before April 18th?
Well, that's the disruption, actually, I was alluding to. 2 justices coming off the bench. That'll leave 6 justices. Even if the Justice Ma joins, it's going to be well short of the constitutional requirement to go ahead with the proceedings. So they'll have to wait for another or several justices to join in to fill in the gaps. That could disrupt 180-day guidelines to decide a case. And with the political wranglings that had happened before, it is a very uncertain situation whether any justice who can be appointed in a timely manner. So I think that we saw that the Constitutional Court was very mindful of this, and it actually seemed like they were hurrying themselves to finish this proceedings well before April 18th. I don't think that purpose or that intent has changed. So full expectation at this point is that they'll finish the proceedings and make the announcement well before April 18th.
Plus, patience is running out with the court yet to announce a ruling date for President Yoon. Now, some say the verdict may even come next month in April. What's your take on this?
Well, the beginning of the interview, I said the court did a good job keeping it under wraps and keeping it confidential, and it should be, because all the speculations we do on YouTube and the news media are just that, speculations. The deliberation of the constitutional matter is amongst themselves, and the Constitution allows that process to be like that. And only thing we can speculate at this point is that because the deliberation part is ongoing for about a month, probably they talked about it enough. And any day now, they could say, well, we talked about it enough, so let's announce. And it's not a difficult thing at this point because there's no mandate to reach a consensus on the either side. I mean, of course, they have to have the 6 justice to have the impeachment. But on the other side, if they have a genuine differences, they could say, well, we didn't reach 6 justices, so it is what it is, and they could announce it. So I think they could do that after they decide that they have talked about it enough.
Well, on top of the impeachment trial, President Yoon Suk-yeol also has to navigate through his insurrection trial. And there was the second preparatory hearing yesterday, which he didn't show up for. What kind of strategies do you think he is, looking for or actually playing out right now?
Well, at this point, it's a pre-trial proceedings. So the President Yoon showing up will not add any value at this point. Probably he will try to make his appearances sparse so that he can control his supporters' actions. But at this point, the pretrial proceedings are when the judges and lawyers get together and talk about the housekeeping matters. How many witnesses, who's going to go first, how long they're going to go first. Those kind of details are something that the lawyers can efficiently talk about it amongst themselves with the judge and not have the President Yoon himself get involved. So it's nothing strange.
Professor Song, thank you so much for your insight and your time this morning. We appreciate it as always.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Wildfires in Sancheong County and Gimhae, Gyeongsang-namdo Province have been burning for 5 and 4 days respectively on Tuesday. But firefighters have not yet fully extinguished the blazes. Some 1,500 personnel have been mobilized to battle the Sancheong County wildfire, with over 85% of the fire extinguished. Forestry authorities are deploying 32 helicopters starting Tuesday morning to begin efforts to fight the fire from the air. Over in Gimhae, forestry authorities plan to increase the deployment of available firefighting resources, including helicopters, with the goal of extinguishing the main fire today. At least 4 people have died in the fires and 5 people have been seriously injured, with 6 others receiving minor injuries. A massive sinkhole 20 meters wide and deep opened in a road in Seoul on Monday evening, trapping a motorcyclist and injuring a car driver. Now, rescue efforts have been ongoing for over 14 hours in an effort to find that missing motorcyclist. Our Choi Min-jung reports.
Rescue operations are continuing in Seoul after a motorcyclist fell into a massive sinkhole on a public road. According to authorities, a sinkhole opened in the middle of a road in Myeongil-dong, Seoul at around 6:30 p.m. on Monday. The sinkhole is approximately 20 meters wide and 20 meters deep, affecting 4 lanes of a 6-lane road.
We have been manually removing soil to search for the missing person underground. However, due to cracks forming on the upper part of the sinkhole, further entry was deemed too dangerous.
The fire department said Tuesday morning, rescuers found the victim's mobile phone at 1:37 a.m. The motorcycle was found at 3:30 a.m. With tons of water and soil accumulated at the sinkhole, rescue workers in diving suits as well as a search and rescue dog continue their efforts to find the victim. Additionally, a car driver who passed through the area just before the collapse was injured and transported to the hospital. Schools in the area decided to close on Tuesday as a precaution for student safety. As for the cause of the sinkhole, authorities have not ruled out a possible connection to the ongoing Subway Line 9 extension project near the collapse site. Construction has been temporarily suspended after the incident. On Monday night, Seoul Mayor Oh Se-hoon urged enhanced safety measures to avoid additional casualties. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
In light of the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation this year, a special tour took place here in Seoul over the weekend, which offered trekkers the chance to join a unique trail that traces Korea's fight for independence. Our Kim Bo-kyung was there.
Thousands of enthusiastic trekkers began walking along the trail that starts at Baekbom Square on Namsan Mountain in Seoul. They headed along one of the Korea Memorial Roads, national pilgrimage trails covering Korea's key historic sites. The Patriots Ministry launched this meaningful trail over the weekend to commemorate the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation this year.
South Korea's proud history has come this far after going through many hardships and challenges. The Patriots Ministry tries to remember this through cultural events such as trekking and camping.
There are 3 courses in Seoul related to the country's independence. One that goes around the Jongno area, taking Tapgol Park, where the Declaration of Independence was read on March 1st, 1919. A second route around the Seoul area, where trekkers can visit the prison history hall, where martyrs were imprisoned during the Japanese colonial era. And last but not least, the route around Namsan Mountain, where people can visit the March 1st Independence Movement Monument. Not being a competition, participants slowly walked along the trail, enjoying the scent of the newly arrived spring. The focus is not on speed, but on appreciating our ancestors' unwielding wish for independence.
By walking along the trail, tracing historic sites of the independence movement, people will be able to reflect on the courage and sacrifices made for the country's freedom.
I think this is a meaningful event because it lets people think about Korean history, which is easy to forget once more.
More Korea Memorial Road routes are to be announced nationwide. 김보경, Arirang News.
Now let's take a look at some stories from around the world with our Choi Ji-hee. Good morning, Ji-hee.
Good morning, Tammy.
So Ji-hee, why don't we start over in Saudi Arabia, where the U.S. and Russia held their talks on a ceasefire for the Ukraine war?
Sure. So the meeting in Saudi Arabia between U.S. and Russian officials on Monday ended after over 12 hours with a joint statement expected to follow. While talks aimed at establishing a partial ceasefire in Ukraine were ongoing in Riyadh, with a Black Sea ceasefire also topping the meeting agenda, hostilities persisted on the ground in the Sumy region. The talks behind closed doors focused on implementing a 30-day pause in attacks targeting energy infrastructure. While both the U.S. and Russian parties acknowledged the importance of reducing hostilities, disagreements emerged. Discussions also touched upon halting Black Sea attacks to safeguard commercial shipping routes. A joint statement is to be published on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Russian forces launched a missile strike in Sumy, northeastern Ukraine, injuring nearly 90 people, including 17 children. Amid the widespread protests in Turkiye following the detention of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, more than 1,000 people have been arrested. The country's interior minister reported on Monday that 1,133 people across Turkey had been taken into custody between March 19th and March 23rd for illegal activities carried out while protesting the arrest of İmamoğlu, a prominent opposition figure and potential presidential candidate. Tens of thousands took to the streets in cities such as Istanbul and Ankara, participating in the largest demonstrations in the country in more than a decade. Law enforcement responded by employing tear gas, water cannons, and rubber bullets to disperse crowds. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan condemned the demonstrations, calling them a movement of violence. The United Nations has announced a reduction in its operations within Gaza Strip following a fatal incident involving personnel from the organization. An Israeli tank strike on March 19th resulted in the death of a UN employee and injuries to 5 others. In response, the UN spokesperson for Secretary General Antonio Guterres announced Monday that the UN will temporarily withdraw around 1/3 of its staff members from the region. The decision follows escalated risks faced by humanitarian workers after Israel restarted military operations in the enclave. Finally, in the UK, London has turned into an open-air gallery with the launch of the Big Egg Hunt 2025, which runs from March 24th to April 27th ahead of Easter. The event features over 100 artist-designed egg sculptures, each standing about 60 centimeters tall, scattered across iconic locations within the city. Organized by the wildlife charity Elephant Family, the initiative launched in 2021 aims to raise awareness and funds for Asian wildlife conservation projects. Participants can download the Big Egg Hunt app to track eggs they've discovered through QR code scans and unlock rewards along the way.
Extreme dryness continues across the country and the risk of wildfires remains dangerously high. Dry weather alerts have been expanded into Gangwon-do and more southern parts of Korea. On top of that, strong winds are expected along the west coast and eastern regions, where a strong wind advisory could be issued. And this combination creates the perfect conditions for fires to spread rapidly. The wildfire crisis alert level remains at its highest in southern parts of Korea. So if you're outdoors, avoid any activities that could spark a fire, like burning trash. Air quality is another major concern today, with yellow dust and ultrafine dust affecting the entire country. Pollution levels could briefly reach very unhealthy levels. Mostly sunny skies will be blurred with dust and highs will stay on the warmer side. Seoul and Busan both getting up to 19 degrees. Now, much needed rain is on the way tomorrow from Jeju and southern coastal areas, spreading nationwide by Thursday. Meanwhile, let's do our part to prevent wildfires to keep communities safe.
Now that wraps up our morning edition of Arirang News. We'll be back with more stories making the headlines at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.